some serious making up to do.
With no control.
Do not open your bay doors!
Welcome to Screen Recaps, and today we are going to be recapping the movie The Last Days on Mars. The movie starts with information about a space mission. A Martian research base called the Tantalize Base was established in 2040, and an 8-person crew has been stationed there for 6 months. They are only 19 hours from the completion of their research mission. A spacecraft named Aurora is inbound from Earth, and will collect the team via a lander. Next, we see a rover carrying Vincent Campbell and Rebecca Lane arriving at the field to pick up scientist Kim Aldrich. Kim is busy collecting samples and makes the rover wait. She is frustrated that they haven't made any substantial discoveries on Mars and are soon going back to Earth empty-handed. Back at the base, unlike Kim, scientist Marko Petrovich seems to be in good spirits. He tells Captain Charles Brunel that he needs to go on an extravehicular activity, EVA, on the surface due to a malfunction. The gamma sensor on Site 9 isn't responding correctly due to a storm. Brunel hesitantly gives him permission, but asks Petrovich to take crewmate Richard Harrington with him. He then tells them to return before dark and be present for the final briefing. Just as Campbell and Lane return with Kim to the Tantalize base, Harrington and Petrovich venture out in Rover 2. Tensions are running high at the Tantalize base. The cooling systems are down. Vince also learns that half of the CO2 scrubbers on Aurora are down, and the spacecraft is taking a strange approach trajectory. Kim is upset that she was forced to report back to the base so early, while Petrovich, who she doesn't see eye to eye with, gets to venture out. Kim, curious and competitive by nature, starts going through Petrovich's workstation. She and the rest of the team quickly learn that Petrovich found samples undergoing bacterial cell division, evidence pointing to life on Mars. They then realize that without revealing his discovery, he devised a ruse for a last EVA on the surface. Brunel swiftly declares the site off limits, but Petrovich reaches the site by then. Petrovich obtains the soil with the biological agent present. He is amazed and delighted with the discovery, and asks Harrington to come out of the rover with a camera. When the ground beneath Petrovich gives way and he falls into a sinkhole, a panicked and horrified Harrington issues a mayday call. Brunel and crewmate Dalby soon arrive at the site. Dalby insists on descending into the sinkhole to rescue Petrovich, but Brunel denies her request, doubting that Petrovich could survive the fall and that his spacesuit would remain intact. Pronouncing Petrovich dead, Brunel tells Dalby they need to get lifting gear from the base to retrieve Petrovich's body and secure approval from Mission Control. Dalby insists on staying on site, unable to leave Petrovich alone. Brunel and Harrington agree, leaving Dalby behind while they return to the base to collect the necessary equipment and approval. Emotions run high at the base due to the accident. Kim insists on focusing on the mission and announcing the groundbreaking discovery. However, the other crew members are appalled by Kim's indifference to losing a colleague. When Kim, cold and candid by nature, indirectly accuses Harrington of causing Petrovich's death, Harrington loses his temper, and everyone tries to calm the situation. Soon, Mission Control grants the team permission to retrieve Petrovich's body. Brunel contacts Dalby at the site aboard Rover 2, informing her that they are heading back. When Dalby suddenly hears someone entering the rover, Brunel loses contact with her. The team arrives at the site to find Dalby missing. Brunel and Campbell venture into the sinkhole while Lane and crewmate Irwin inspect Rover 2 and find it empty. The bottom of the sinkhole isn't visible due to steam. The team wonders if Dalby fell in. Irwin, inspecting the nearby area on foot, reports 2 sets of footprints heading towards the base. Brunel speculates that they might belong to Dalby and Petrovich, but is puzzled as to why they walked back instead of taking the rover. Kim and Harrington prepare for 2 possible casualties. Suddenly, Petrovich appears outside the base. Harrington swiftly opens the airlock and Petrovich enters, immediately collapsing. A worried Harrington helps Petrovich open his helmet, revealing a blackened, zombie-like Petrovich gasping for air. The exposure to the fungal organism has transformed Petrovich into a fast, aggressive, intelligent zombie creature with blackened skin and no trace of his original personality. Petrovich picks up an electric drill and attacks Harrington. A zombified Dalby then arrives, chasing him around the base. Severely wounded, Harrington manages to lock himself inside the control room and issues a mayday call to Brunel before succumbing to his injuries. The 2 zombies gang up on Kim. While fighting off Petrovich, Kim notices Dalby drinking water from the laboratory floor like an animal. Kim eventually locks herself away from them. Brunel arrives and orders Campbell to wait outside while Lane and Irwin secure the other side of the base. Reaching Kim, Brunel is alarmed to see the possessed Dalby and Petrovich frantically attacking the gate. He instructs Kim to suit up while he holds them off at the door. Kim swiftly suits up and exits the airlock. Petrovich, now possessed, strikes Brunel with a pickaxe below his collarbone. But Brunel manages to run outside and lock the zombies out, swiftly carrying the fatally injured Brunel into the hydroponic dome. They lay him on a table and clean his wound, but they are surprised to see a lack of blood flowing from the wound. Brunel reports memory loss and thirst, so Irwin brings water and quenches his thirst. But suddenly Brunel starts choking Irwin. Exposed to the organism, Brunel is slowly reanimating into a zombie. The crew ties him up on the table. Meanwhile, Dalby and Petrovich blow up a part of the dome and break free, shutting down all communication services. Realizing the importance of contacting the Aurora lander, Campbell decides to return to the tantalized base to fix the communication services using the oxygen feed pipe. As Brunel slowly transforms, Lane takes a blood sample and studies the bacteria. Kim and Lane test antibiotics against the bacteria to find a cure. They decide to use decontamination spray in the airlock to deliver the solution to Brunel's body. After injecting the antibiotic, the bacteria stop multiplying and show zero motility. Campbell fixes the communication services and establishes contact with the Aurora lander. However, the communication breaks down again. Tired of unsuccessful attempts to break into the hydroponic dome, Dalby and Petrovich return to the base. Kim opens the airlock to lure the zombies back. Dalby returns, but Petrovich disappears. Lane learns the antibiotics' effect is temporary, and the bacteria is developing resistance. Campbell finds a reanimated Harrington broke down the communication. Harrington chases Campbell into the oxygen feed pipe, but Campbell manages to get into the hydroponic dome. As zombie Harrington follows, Kim distracts him, allowing the others to run to the airlock. Irwin traps Kim with Harrington and closes the airlock. The remaining crew flees to the rover, but Dalby stabs Lane's leg with a scissor. Campbell, Irwin, and Lane head towards the Aurora lander but realize the rover lacks power to reach the location. They decide to reach the fully charged rover at the Fisher site. Irwin steals the second rover, urging Campbell to abandon Lane. Campbell refuses, sticking with Lane on Rover 1 while they wait for sunrise to charge the solar-powered batteries. They fall asleep the next morning. Campbell wakes up alone in the rover and realizes that Lane has fled into the desert, afraid she might attack him because of her infection. He notices her footsteps on the sand and chases her. Campbell eventually finds her in the desert and pleads with her to come back. Lane tries to deter him, then commits suicide by removing her helmet. A panicking and sobbing Campbell holds Lane in his arms as she passes away. As Campbell mourns, Lane swiftly reanimates and starts attacking him. Blind with love, he tries to hold her and begs her to resist the zombie inside her. Lane pleads with Campbell to finish her. Finally, Campbell reluctantly complies by bashing her head in with a rock. Campbell and Irwin separately converge on the Aurora lander. As the Aurora lander touches down, the zombies start racing towards it. The zombies surround the lander. Campbell tries to warn the unsuspecting crew not to open the bay doors, but with no success. By the time he reaches the lander, all the crew members are slaughtered. He sees a reanimated zombie feeding on a dead crew member, while Petrovich and the other zombies appear dried out and inert. Campbell carefully boards the lander, anticipating attacks. He eventually reaches the cockpit and is amazed to find an infected Irwin still wishing to return to Earth. A panting Irwin tries to remember his daughter's name and tells Campbell he wants to feel his hands again. Campbell empathizes with him and helps him remember his daughter's name, but tells him they can't take the bacteria back to Earth. A stubborn Irwin attacks Campbell with an infected knife. Campbell manages to disarm him, but Irwin slams Campbell into the ground, picks up the knife, and slashes Campbell's cheek. Irwin then gets back to the seat and initiates a launch. Campbell pulls out the knife and attacks him again. They struggle as the lander flies vertically towards space. Eventually, Campbell subdues Irwin by continually slamming his helmet on Irwin's head. The lander enters Mars orbit and their bodies, along with Irwin's virulent blood droplets, start floating in the ship. Campbell drags Irwin's body and his blood-stained helmet into the airlock and ejects him and his virulent blood droplets into the vacuum of space. Later, in a message to Mission Control, Campbell says he does not have enough fuel to reach the Aurora, but supplies aboard can last for months if they want to launch a rescue. He warns them that this might not be advisable as he could be infected. If so, he says that he has just enough fuel for re-entry into the atmosphere and a fast death. Campbell concludes that it will take 15 minutes for the transmission to be received, and will wait for their reply. He ends the communication floating alone in space.
I thought I was